For 84 years, the world has been deprived of the full depth of Edgar Cayce's most profound revelations about life after death, God, and the universe. Often called the sleeping prophet, Cayce accessed a state of consciousness that transcended the physical realm, revealing insights so extraordinary that some were deemed too controversial for the public. Today, we unveil what many have sought to understand about Cayce's most transformative visions. Before we continue, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're watching from. It really helps support the channel. Edgar Cayce was not a man of traditional academic learning. Born in 1877 in Kentucky, his formal education ended in the 9th grade. Yet, through a remarkable ability to access what he called the universal consciousness while in a trance state, he became one of the most documented psychics of the 20th century. What made Cayce truly extraordinary was that he seemed to transcend the limitations of space and time, accessing information that he had no conventional way of knowing. "How does one explain the inexplicable?" Cayce once remarked when asked about his abilities. He didn't claim to understand the source of his knowledge fully. He simply knew that when he entered a self-induced trance state, lying down with his hands folded over his stomach, something profound would happen. His voice would change, becoming deeper and more measured, and he would begin to speak on subjects far beyond his waking knowledge. What many don't realize is that Cayce gave over 14,000 documented readings during his lifetime. While many focused on health diagnoses and treatments, approximately 1/3 delved into spiritual matters, including the nature of the soul, life after death, and humanity's relationship with the divine. These spiritual readings form the foundation of what became known as the Cayce cosmology, a comprehensive spiritual framework that weaves together elements of Christianity, Eastern philosophy, and metaphysical concepts. Cayce's perspective on life after death was revolutionary for his time, especially within the predominantly Christian context of early 20th century America. He didn't speak of a single heaven or hell where souls would be eternally rewarded or punished. Instead, he described a complex, multidimensional afterlife where the soul continues its journey of growth and evolution. According to Cayce, death is not an end, but a transition. "Death is just a doorway," he stated in one reading. "It is but a phase of life's experience through which each entity passes in its development toward that which is the creative purpose for every soul." When the physical body dies, Cayce explained that the soul enters what he called the astral plane, a dimension of existence that exists beyond our physical perception, but is just as real as the material world. In this astral realm, the soul undergoes a period of adjustment and review. Cayce described how each soul experiences a life review where it examines the life just lived, not from a perspective of judgment, but understanding. Every action, thought, and intention is seen in the context of its effect on others and one's own spiritual growth. This process isn't punitive but educational. The soul gains a deeper understanding of the consequences of its choices and the lessons it needed to learn. What makes Cayce's vision of the afterlife particularly profound is its emphasis on continuity and purpose. Death, in his understanding, doesn't erase or fundamentally change who we are. Our personality, our memories, our accumulated wisdom all continue. The only difference is that we no longer have a physical body through which to express ourselves in the material world. The soul, Cayce explained, retains all the knowledge and experiences it has ever had, both in the earth plane and in the spiritual realms. This continuity of consciousness means that relationships formed during physical life can continue after death, albeit in a different form. Loved ones who have passed on remain connected to those still in physical form, often serving as guides or guardians. This brings us to one of Cayce's most controversial assertions about the afterlife, the concept of reincarnation. While reincarnation is commonly associated with Eastern religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, Cayce incorporated it into a framework that also embraced core Christian principles. He asserted that reincarnation was actually taught in early Christianity, but was later removed from church doctrine. According to Cayce, souls choose to reincarnate into physical bodies for the purpose of spiritual growth and development. Each life presents specific lessons and opportunities for the soul to evolve toward greater awareness and alignment with divine purpose. This doesn't happen randomly, but follows what Cayce called karmic patterns, the consequences of choices made in previous lifetimes that shape the circumstances of future incarnations. "As ye sow, so shall ye reap," Cayce would often quote from the Bible, explaining that this wasn't just a moral teaching, but a description of a universal law. Every action, thought, and intention creates an energy pattern that must eventually be balanced through experience. This isn't punishment, but a natural process of learning and growth. What's particularly interesting is how Cayce integrated this concept of reincarnation with Christian theology. He didn't see it as contradictory to Christ's teachings, but as complementary. In his readings, Cayce explained that Jesus himself understood and taught about reincarnation, and that properly understood, it enhances rather than diminishes the significance of Christ's message of love and redemption. This brings us to Cayce's understanding of God and the universe, which was both profoundly simple and infinitely complex. For Cayce, God wasn't a distant, judgmental figure, but the very source and substance of all creation. God is love, he would often state, emphasizing that divine love is not just an emotion, but the fundamental creative force of the universe. In Cayce's cosmology, each soul is a spark, or extension of this divine source, created in God's image, not physically, but in terms of creative potential and consciousness. The purpose of existence, then, is for each soul to grow in awareness of its true nature and relationship with the divine. This growth isn't linear but cyclical, involving many lifetimes of experience in both physical and spiritual realms. Cayce described a universe that is fundamentally alive and conscious at every level. Even what we perceive as inanimate matter contains consciousness, albeit in a form very different from human awareness. Everything, from subatomic particles to galaxies, exists within an interconnected web of energy and information that Cayce sometimes referred to as the universal consciousness, or the Akashic records. These Akashic records, according to Cayce, contain the complete history of every soul and indeed every aspect of creation. They exist in a non-physical dimension that transcends time and space, recording not just what has happened but all possibilities. When in trance, Cayce claimed to access these records, which explained his ability to speak about subjects far beyond his conscious knowledge and to describe past lives of the individuals for whom he gave readings. Cayce's vision of the universe was remarkably holistic, integrating scientific understanding with spiritual insight. Long before quantum physics began to suggest that consciousness might play a role in shaping reality, Cayce was describing a universe in which mind and matter were fundamentally interconnected. Thoughts are things, he would often say, explaining that mental energy creates patterns that eventually manifest in physical form. This understanding led to one of Cayce's most empowering teachings, that each individual has the ability to co-create their reality through the focus of their consciousness. The mind is the builder, he stated in numerous readings, emphasizing that our habitual patterns of thought and emotion shape not just our perceptions, but the actual circumstances of our lives. Yet Cayce was clear that this creative power comes with responsibility. We aren't isolated beings creating in a vacuum, but interconnected aspects of a greater whole. Our thoughts and actions affect not just ourselves, but ripple outward to influence others, and indeed the entire fabric of creation. This is why Cayce placed such emphasis on cultivating love, compassion, and service to others as the highest expressions of spiritual development. Cayce's understanding of evil and suffering was particularly nuanced. He didn't see them as punishments from God, but as the natural consequences of free will exercised without alignment to divine principles. When souls make choices based on selfishness, fear, or separation, they create patterns of disharmony that must eventually be balanced through experience. This balancing isn't punishment, but education. the universe providing feedback that guides souls back toward harmony. This perspective offers a profound answer to one of humanity's most persistent questions. Why would a loving God allow suffering? In Cayce's cosmology, suffering isn't God's will, but a temporary consequence of humanity's collective learning process. As souls evolve toward greater awareness of their true nature and relationship with the divine, suffering naturally diminishes. One of the most striking aspects of Cayce's spiritual teachings was his emphasis on practical application. Knowledge, he insisted, was valuable only to the extent that it was lived. The difference, he would say, is the application. Understanding spiritual principles intellectually was just the beginning. True transformation came from incorporating them into daily life through meditation, service to others, and conscious cultivation of love and compassion. Cayce's approach to spirituality was remarkably inclusive for his time. While he himself was a devout Christian who read the Bible daily, his readings acknowledged the validity of all sincere spiritual paths. He saw the world's great religious traditions not as competitors, but as different expressions of the same universal truths, adapted to specific cultural and historical contexts. According to Cayce, at the core of all genuine spiritual teachings is the recognition of humanity's divine nature and potential. The specific practices, rituals, and beliefs are secondary to this central insight. What matters most is not the form of one's spirituality, but its effect on character and relationships. Does it lead to greater love, compassion, and service? Does it foster a sense of unity rather than separation? These were Cayce's criteria for evaluating spiritual truth. In the depths of his trance states, Cayce also spoke of cosmic cycles and the evolution of human consciousness on a collective level. He described how humanity has passed through various ages or stages of development, each with its own challenges and opportunities for growth. The current period, he suggested, is one of accelerated transformation as humanity approaches what he sometimes called a new age of heightened spiritual awareness. This transition, Cayce cautioned, would not be entirely smooth. It would involve upheavals and challenges, as old systems and patterns that no longer serve humanity's evolution break down to make way for new ones. Yet he was ultimately optimistic, foreseeing a future in which humanity would recognize its essential unity and develop technologies and social structures aligned with spiritual principles. What makes Cayce's vision so relevant today is its integration of spiritual insight with practical guidance for individual and collective transformation. At a time when humanity faces unprecedented challenges, environmental degradation, social division, technological change, Cayce's emphasis on the power of consciousness to shape reality offers both hope and direction. The most profound aspect of Cayce's teachings, perhaps, is the vision of human potential they present. According to Cayce, each person has access to the same universal consciousness that he tapped while in trance. The difference is not one of kind, but of degree. Not what is possible, but what has been developed. Through disciplines like meditation, prayer, and compassionate service, anyone can expand their awareness beyond the limitations of the ego self to experience greater connection with the divine source. This democratization of spiritual capacity stands in stark contrast to religious systems that place intermediaries between individuals and God. For Cayce, direct communion with the divine was everyone's birthright. The challenge is removing the barriers, fear, attachment, ego identification, that obscure this connection. In essence, what Edgar Cayce offered was not just information about life after death, God and the universe, but a comprehensive path for spiritual development. His readings provide a map of consciousness that encompasses both the seen and unseen aspects of existence, offering guidance for navigating both. The highest ideal, according to Cayce's readings, is to become a clear channel for divine love to express in the world. This doesn't require withdrawal from ordinary life or adherence to rigid doctrines. Rather, it means bringing spiritual awareness into every aspect of daily experience, relationships, work, civic engagement, self-care, and recognizing the sacred dimension in all things. In the realm beyond physical existence, Cayce described a continuation of this evolutionary journey. Souls who have completed their cycle of incarnations in the earth plane don't simply rest in eternal bliss, but may choose to serve as guides for those still in physical form, or to explore other dimensions of reality. The adventure of consciousness, in Cayce's vision, is endless, with infinite horizons of experience and growth awaiting each soul. Perhaps most comforting in Cayce's vision of life after death is the assurance that nothing of value is ever truly lost. Relationships continue, wisdom accumulates, and love endures beyond the transition we call death. The bonds formed between souls persist through all changes of form and circumstance, gradually expanding to include wider and wider circles of connection. In this light, death loses much of its sting. It becomes not an ending, but a transition. Not a punishment, but a doorway to new dimensions of experience. While the physical body returns to the elements from which it was formed, the individualized consciousness that is the true self continues its journey, carrying forward all that has been learned and all the love that has been given and received. What awaits us, according to Cayce, is not judgment but homecoming, a return to awareness of our true nature and relationship with all that is. The veil that separates the physical and spiritual realms thins, allowing recognition of the greater reality that has always been present, but often unperceived during physical life. This understanding doesn't remove the natural grief that accompanies losing the physical presence of loved ones. Cayce acknowledged that separation, even when temporary, brings sorrow. Yet his readings offer the consolation that such separation is an illusion created by the limitations of physical perception. In the greater reality, we remain connected to those we love, able to communicate through channels that transcend the physical senses. For those who have eyes to see and ears to hear, Cayce suggested, evidence of this continuation abounds. Dreams, intuitions, synchronicities, and moments of unexpected grace can all serve as bridges between the worlds, reminding us that we exist within a reality far vaster and more wondrous than our ordinary perception reveals. In Edgar Cayce's profound cosmic vision, we find not just information, but invitation. An invitation to expand our awareness beyond the boundaries of conventional perception, to recognize our essential divinity, and to participate consciously in the great adventure of soul evolution. His legacy reminds us that the greatest mysteries of existence are not beyond our comprehension, but within our reach, waiting to be explored through the development of our innate spiritual capacities. The wisdom revealed through Edgar Cayce offers a perspective that transcends the fear and limitation that often characterize human thinking about death and the afterlife. It presents instead a vision of cosmic order and purpose, in which each soul plays an essential part in the grand symphony of creation. This is not spiritual escapism, but a call to deeper engagement with life in all its dimensions, physical and metaphysical, personal and universal. In a world often fragmented by competing ideologies and conflicting beliefs, Cayce's inclusive spirituality offers common ground, where diverse traditions can meet in mutual recognition of shared truth. His readings consistently emphasize that what unites humanity is far more fundamental than what divides us, that beneath the surface, differences of culture, religion, and personal circumstance lies a common divine heritage and destiny. The most revolutionary aspect of Cayce's message may be its implication that we are not helpless spectators in a predetermined cosmic drama, but active participants in an evolving creation. Through the quality of our consciousness and the choices we make, we contribute to the unfoldment of divine potential in unique and irreplaceable ways. This understanding infuses every moment with sacred significance and every decision with cosmic importance. In Cayce's vision, death is not something to be feared, but embraced as a natural transition in the soul's eternal journey. It marks not an end, but a continuation, not a diminishment, but an expansion of awareness and possibility. The more deeply we understand this truth, the more fully we can live, not in denial of mortality, but in recognition of the immortal essence that expresses through the temporary form of physical existence. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Edgar Cayce's profound insights into life after death, God, and the universe. If these ideas resonated with you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. Your engagement through likes and shares helps these timeless wisdoms reach others who might benefit from them. Subscribe to our channel to join us on future journeys into spiritual wisdom across traditions and times. Remember, as Cayce himself might say, death is not the end of the story, it's just the turning of a page.